Hello, today I want to present to you my collection of rhipsalis. My original idea was to show you in one film all my epiphytes, but as you can see, this video, which is dedicated only to rhipsalis, will be around 30 minutes long. So I decided to split into two videos. So today we will be talking about only rhipsalis in my collection. So rhipsalis is a jungle cactus which you can find in Central America, South America, in the Caribbean. There's lots of in Brazil. As you can already see, the stems might be different, so some they are quite thin and some they resemble leaves, but we call them still stems, not leaves. So you can really unofficially divide them into those with like spaghetti like stems, very thin, long, those with fleshy clads, and third group which is covered with small hair. And also, so this will also impact on your watering schedule, because obviously those with more thicker clads will store water for a longer time than those with thin stems. As you can see, I put mine outside in summertime, so they receive dappled light because they are hanging on the trees. Or if I can't provide like semi-shade, then I would cover them with some fleece which protects them from intense light. You may notice that some of them produce like crystals of sugar. So I've read that it's a natural process because they produce that to entice ants, who in turn will protect the plant itself from harming carnivores. Here you can see a really simple schematics of taxonomy. So you can see they are in Rhipsalidae tribe, which can be further divided into rhipsalis, Hatoria, Lepismium and Schlumbergera. But today we will be talking only about rhipsalis, and next episode will be about the rest of Rhipsalidae tribe, including also Hylocereus tribes, where you can find, for instance, Disocactus, Epiphyllum, Selenicereus. Sometimes plants is first classified into one category and then move to another. So in my video you will see how I received with what names the plants. So let's start the presentation of my plants, and whilst doing that I will also talk you through my care regime. So the first one, you can see Rhipsalis heteroclada, so has got a bit chunkier and thicker stems, and so as I said, I keep them outside in summertime, but in winter most of them they are back into the house. Only a few this year I'll put in a greenhouse, which is heated when the temperature drops to 4 or 5 degrees. So heteroclada is one of those which will stay in the greenhouse, and I noticed that those with stems like are a bit more hardier than those with kind of leafy stems. Number 2, as you can see that I'm numbering because I want to know for myself as well how many I've got in my collection. It's a classic Rhipsalis casuha, which is quite common with very thin tendrils, and this one is like spaghetti like Rhipsalis. So when I keep them indoors, they are again receiving more indirect light rather than direct. You can also mist them, so I mist in summer and spring, especially those with thinner stems. So I use either just rainwater or orchid spray, or even air plant fertilizer spray. And I don't spray them in winter. You can also put them in the kitchen or bathroom because obviously there is a higher humidity, so they will love it. As I mentioned a couple of times now, I keep them outside in summer. So if it rains like a few days in a row, then I will try to protect them from water, from rain, or just bring them back in a house, because even the most few draining soil won't cope with too much of water. So what potting mix I use? That's my own mixture of bark, Johnson's number 2, grit, pumice and perlite. So it's really loose and free draining. And here you can see number 3. I don't have ID, so if you know what it is, let me know in the comment section. I suspect it might be some variety of rhipsalis bassifera. Again, it's one of those thin ones. Now, when it comes to watering, I water from above, trying to pour water all around, not just in one spot of the pot. Or you can just immerse the pot into the water, so it's so-called bottom watering. Obviously, they don't want to have a root system, which is quite thin, to be honest, be constantly wet. So I try, so the next watering will be when most of the soil has dried out. They are not like desert cacti, so even in winter they require a bit of water. I also like to be root bound, and I report them whenever I get a new plant, even if it's winter time. The next one is rhipsalis bassifera, and what's interesting about the whole species of rhipsalis bassifera is that it's the only one from all rhipsalis which can be found not only in New World, which is Americas, but also in the Old World, meaning Africa, Madagascar. They can be found also in Sri Lanka. I forgot to mention that once they are outside, there are a few dangers. So to mention some of them is just spiders with lots of cobwebs, slugs, snails, aphids or sunburn. So before bringing them back into the house, I would check them and get rid of any caterpillars or slugs. And now let's move on to some different looking rhipsalis, so you won't think that there's only those thin ones. So here we've got two rhipsalis paradoxa major and minor. So you can see the difference in their chains. They are sometimes commonly known as chain cactus, and here you can see that it's thirsty, it needs watering because the stems are a bit wrinkly. I think paradoxa, it might be one of those more difficult to grow, and in my experience it's a slower grower comparing to some other rhipsalis. And here you've got a rhipsalis paradoxa minor, and this one for a long time didn't do anything. I mean, didn't put out any new stems, but finally it put out just one, which you will see in a moment. I think you can clearly see the difference between major and minor when the chains are a bit different. And so after watering, you can see as well the difference, how it packed up. Now I've got a small baby here, Pentaptera, which I got last year to root, and it produced more stems, and this year later on I managed to get another one, a bigger specimen, and also you may find it under the name of rhipsalis pentagona. In the description box you will find a link to the website called rhipsalis.com, where you can see the whole list of different rhipsalis, lepismium, etc. So there's lots of useful information. Now this one is one of those fuzzy one, kind of covered with small hair, and it's my second attempt to grow this one, because the first one died on me. I think I underwater it and it didn't have the proper location. So fingers crossed this one will grow nicely, because I've seen a huge specimen somewhere on Facebook, I think, and it looked stunning. Now, Rhipsalis pilocarpa has got some sentimental value to me, because I received a few stems to propagate from my aunt, and it grows fabulously. And I got also a few stems last year, I think, at the end, or maybe, yeah, or this year in June, sorry, from my mum. So the first year when I got it, it bloomed only with one flower. The following year there were no flowers at all. The third year there was, I think, just a couple, and this year, look, the whole, almost every stem has got some buds and flowers, and they look so lovely, like little stars. And also there is a fragrance to them, a really pleasant one. And this one blooms for me late autumn, the beginning of winter. Now, in terms of propagation, so obviously you can grow them from seeds, or just cut some stems and put in the soil. From time to time I will just miss potting mix just a bit, but other than that I just leave them be, waiting them to root. They are obviously not in the direct light when rooting. And this one is Rhipsalis passifera, which flowered for me for the first time, and has still got lots of berries. So fruits are edible. I haven't tried myself yet. Horrida in Latin means prickly, not horrible, which you may think when hearing the name. And this one had some mealybugs, so looks a bit thinner compared to when I got it first. And if you see at the top yellowing of the stems, it might be indication of too much water, and that or that the soil absorbs and holds on to water, so they are constantly have their roots moist, which they don't like it. So I would just change potting mix, maybe revise your watering regime. Just remember that obviously you can propagate by dividing, and then you will have more rhipsalis. Now this one, as you can see, there are two names, because originally when I bought it came with the names of Rhipsalis platycaulata, whatever you pronounce it, but I couldn't find any information whatsoever on the internet. And on one of the Facebook groups someone suggested that might be Rhipsalis occidentalis, but this is just to show that sometimes traders put their own names of plants and instead of botanical, and also quite a lot of them are mislabeled as well. So this one, the stems resemble more like leaves, as you can see. So if you were to propagate, you would just cut where the joint of those stems are. And also you can see a bit of sometimes you can notice some browning at the top. It's just a natural corking process. Now, good news for pet owners, because those plants are non-toxic, so they are safe for your cats and dogs. But the plant itself might be in danger if you've got a playful cat which likes playing with those dingling bits, or if they are a bit of nibbling kind. Now you can see here Rhipsalis robusta or Pachyptera, and it has got this lovely color when it's sun stressed, and the clouds are quite fleshy and meaty, as I called them. You can see here how when I first got it, it was more on the green side. Now this one, I think it's one of the biggest Rhipsalis in my collection, crispata, and it put out lots of new clouds during the summer, and you can see the difference between older and younger, because the younger, they are more shiny green with a tinge of red. So cute. You can see the small one. So I need to mention as well that most of the films and photos were taken in August. There are lots of ways how you can display your Rhipsalis. So obviously in the hanging baskets, hanging on the windowsill from the ceiling, making us like a living curtain, which looks really great. You can put them in macrams or at the top of the cupboards, so they'll be trailing nicely, or in head planters. And here we've got another Rhipsalis elliptica, again sun stress, and so it got this lovely burgundy almost color. And again, I will show you when I first got it. And now in winter, when it's not so much light, it reverts back to being a kind of green. But I have to admit, I'm not sure whether you would agree with me, but I like its color when it's so red. And again, you can see the clouds are quite thin and flat, and some of them of different shape. And here we've got Rhipsalis teres capilliformis. So again, back to those spaghetti-like. And as you can see, when it's grown a big mature specimen, it looks really, it should really look stunning. So I still got a bit to wait. So I mentioned that some of them I keep in greenhouse over winter, so this one and some Rhipsalis baxifera and heteroclada, they are in the greenhouse. I would like to mention one of YouTube channels where the lady from America has got amazing collection of all sorts of epiphytes, and she's got wealth of experience and knowledge. So you will see the link up above and as well in the description box. Now here I've got another one which I don't have a proper or full ID, but I think it might be some Rhipsalis baxifera. And last year it spent its winter in the house and didn't really like much there. It lost some stems. I didn't see any pests. So this year I'm going to leave it in the greenhouse, so hopefully it will survive UK winter, but usually it's quite mild, only a few cold snaps. And in summer it put out so much new growth, unbelievable. So again, if you think what it is, let me know in the description box, and I welcome your comments. I wonder which ones you like in my collection. And I also looking for Rhipsalis pulchra and Rhipsalis clavata to add to my collection, so hopefully I will find them. And here we've got quite popular Rhipsalis burchelli, still a youngster, When rhipsalis is still a young plant and they haven't flowered yet, sometimes it might be more difficult to ID them. But if you have a close-up of their stems, you may see that they differ, how chunky they are, how different segments look, how they fork out, and obviously different flowers. So here we've got another one which is quite popular. So you can see side by side the difference. So it's definitely a genus of plants which is easy to grow, low maintenance, and some of them they grow really fast, especially I think those thin stemmed. Here I've got another baby which I rooted, and it put out some new segments. It will look much more impressive when it's more adored and bigger and trailing. It's quite difficult here in the UK to find a bit less common rhipsalis, I think. Now we are going to see a few different forms of rhipsalis micrantha. So here the first one is Gilbertberry, and you can see that the stems more like triangle or quadrangle. It's quite nice looking plant. I apologize a bit for my sniffling, but I'm just going through COVID whilst putting the voiceover. And here we've got another two micrantha, one for micrantha and one rauchmi, I think it's how you pronounce. I'm not sure, 100% sure, but you can see the difference again in the stems. So I hope you enjoyed this tour of my rhipsalis. So please give me a thumb up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't done yet so, and share and comment. I've already made a few films about my epiphytic cacti, so I will put a link to the playlist up above in the description box. So there, as I said, a couple of films. One of them is, I think, the tour from last year. So if you watch it, you can see how my collection has expanded, but also how some of the plants have grown. You can fertilize them in spring and summer. The fertilizer for cacti and succulents will be fine, and obviously don't fertilize in winter when they don't actively grow. As I mentioned before, they are epiphytes, meaning that they grow on other on the bark, on trees, but they are not parasites. Some of them might be lithophytes, meaning that they grow on rocks. Now, the name rhipsalis comes from the Greek word rhips, which means wickerwork, and obviously it refers to its slender stems. And here we've got Epiphytic. So just to show you that it's another name for rhipsalis micrantha. As I said, sometimes the names come from one category into another, and it's quite hard to keep up sometimes. Now here I've got two species of rhipsalis flocosa, but I'm not sure exactly what subspecies they are. So again, if you know, let me know in the comment box. And have a look after the flowers are spent. There's like a crater left because the buds themselves and also the new growths comes from as if from under the epidermis and the skin, and it looks quite funny with this loop. So there are a few rhipsalis which do that, and I will show you others a bit later, so you might be able to see here a bit better. It's just strange looking, like an alien coming out of, because the areolas are hidden underneath. So this one is quite long, and you can see just strong threads or tendrils, stems. So the another Phlocosa is this one, and looks totally different. It forks out in all sorts of directions. When I first saw it, the word which came to my mind was Christmas tree for some reason. And then you can see as well the color is green with a tinge of like a purple or red. When you touch the stem, you can feel some bumps. So these are those areolae hidden underneath the epidermis. And here, side by side, you can see the difference in the appearance, and they are both rhipsalis Phlocosa. One more thing, if you see that the ends of the stems are brittle and brown, it might be the sign of underwatering and that the plant doesn't receive enough water. Another plant which has got hidden areolae and creates loops of new stems is Rhipsalis nives Armondi, but here when you touch the stems it's smoother. You can't see so or feel those bumps. I forgot to mention that in winter, when they are kept indoors, they are still in a cooler room, so there's no heating, or the heating is kept to minimum. So again, I think it is conducive to flowering, so I'm hoping more of my rhipsalis will flower next year. But as I said before, I had a few which flowered this year for the first time. And here we've got Rhipsalis Irlandiana, which is a bit on the smaller side, but again it has put out quite a lot of new shoots for me this year. And another one, a bit thicker. You can see it's got more like kind of olive color of the stems, and some of them they are quite like a triangle, some are flat, so all sorts of shapes. And new growth again is of a bit different color, more like dark red, cherry color. And I will show you what the sunburn looks, because even though it was I thought in a shady place, it got a bit burnt. So here it is. So this is what the sunburn looks like. It looks a bit unsightly. So almost every plant in my collection is really nice to touch, but there is one plant which is a bit more difficult to handle, and it's this one, Rhipsalis monacantha. And because you can even see it's got those spines coming out, and this one causes me the most trouble, to be honest. It as I mentioned in my previous video, it got mealybugs, and it's got some sunburn as well. What's interesting about this plant is it's got orange flowers, and the berries are, when they are ripe, they are kind of red. And finally, one of my favorites, and it's quite a weird one. As you can see, the stems are quite chunky, and some of them naked, and some they've got thin hair. And it's another one which has got craters made by wilted flowers. So and you will see here, it's a good example when you can see the new stems coming out of the end of the stems, and also out of the epidermis. And a few stems they got detached, so I'm rooting them, or I rooted them, and they took off. So this is when I first started. So you can see one end is quite hairy and the other one is naked. So this was the name that it came with, but I couldn't find any information. The only information I could find was on rhipsalis flocosa, suspicious polyginaria, so it might be this one. So again, if you know what it is, let me know. And you can see here the stems have grown. Now have a look, and you can see here how unworldly it looks, unearthly, when it comes out of the end. So I hope you like this tour. So as I said, give me a thumb up, your comments are welcome. And just to finish off is rhipsalis red coral. The name comes from the fact that it turns into this beautiful red when it's sun stress. As you can see, it flowered, and it's got some berries even from last year. And there was another name, it's got another name because it got reclassified. So thank you for watching. Stay tuned for the second part of my epiphytic cacti tour, and I will see you next time. Bye!